Alright guys, welcome back to the layout. So this is going to be the video tour of the layout. I'm not going to run any trains, I'm just going to basically tour the entire layout. A lot of the viewers have been asking for a tour video, so here it is. So basically my layout is New Haven Railroad. It takes place in the 1950s, and the primary focus is Bridgeport, Connecticut, but it also has New Haven, Connecticut on the other side of the layout. So we'll get started with the dispatcher station. I do run the layout with a dispatcher. I want it to be as prototypical as possible when running the layout, and just to show you how I have it set up, I have the layout is primarily 5 interlockings, and they consist of Bishop Avenue SS63, Fairfield Avenue SS59, New Haven SS75, Fair Street SS78, and also the lower yard SS57. Now, my layout is primarily DC. It started off as a DC layout, and that was basically due to the amount of locomotives I purchased before I even built the layout. I have so many DC locomotives. For me, it has made sense to stay DC. But I did upgrade the layout to DCC last year. I'm using NCE. I started with a Pro Cab starter set, and then I added a Smart Booster. So now it's a 5 amp system. The dispatcher has its own throttle. I have a throttle for the lower yard area in the harbor, and I also have 2 throttles for the inside of the layout. I do have 1 duck under. There was no way around it. But just to show you how the actual switches work, most of the mainline switches are powered, and these switches here, as you can see, are lit up in green, and that is to signify a normal route. Now, if I were to throw, for instance, 13 switch in the lower yard, it looks orange, but it's a bipolar or 2-color LED, and it goes red. That means it's reversed. So when you go through the model board, it's also reversed. Now, if I were to throw the switch back to normal, the LED goes back to normal. So I can look at this model board of the entire layout and know that all the switches are normal. Now, with these switches though, I'm using Pico switches. The layout is 100% Pico, and I'm using the Pico switch machines. So the LEDs work very well, and I have the outside line, which is track 1. I also have the middle track is track 2, and the inside track is track 4. You can see each track has indications for the cabs, cab A, B, and C, and D. I have 4 cabs for DC. I use GML throttles, and there's my GML faceboards right there. So with the switches, or with the main lines, the New Haven line, as you know today, in Bridgeport, has 4 lines, tracks 1 through 4. Tracks 3 and 1, if you were to go to New York, you would get on track 3. Track 3 is a local track. Track 1 is a express track. On the opposite side, track 4 is a local, and track 2 is an express. So I do have track 3. Now, track 3, I mean, it's not prototypical, but it works for me. Track 3 runs from track 1, and it goes through the lower yard. Now, it starts over here, comes through here, all through the yard, comes over, back through, and goes into 43 switch. So just to show you on the layout, that's track 3. It comes off 13 switch. This is actually considered a main line, and you've probably seen some of my switching videos, and it comes through the yard. So this is actually considered a main line. Now this layout will have catenary. I'll show you some catenary bridges in a minute, but there's the main line right there. It is super elevated, so the trains will lean. That's Jenkins curve, what you're seeing right there. When you go through Bridgeport, and if you're ever traveling on a train, the entire train will lean. So I try to create that same feeling here on the layout, and it worked pretty well. Now, going over to the lower yard. The lower yard has a yard master panel. All right, so I do have the ability to hire on a yard master if I want to during an op session. And if you're working the lower yard, you have your own panel. I do have 5 switches that are powered. As you can see, the LEDs are there. Originally I didn't have the LEDs, but I wanted them afterwards, and so I added them in. The reason why I put the powered switches in is I will have catenary running through the yard. I do run electrics. The catenary is not going to be powered, but it will add the effect that it is from Bridgeport. Now the lower yard in Bridgeport is no longer there, but there are pictures that I see, and they did have wire in the lower yard. So it only went to a certain level, but I'm going to extend it throughout the entire thing so I can bring motors all the way through. So that's pretty much the dispatching panel. And just to show you, I have a few wires in there. So a friend of mine helped me with the wiring, but as far as the switches and the LEDs, I did all that myself. It was definitely a challenge. So if you look through here, this is going to be the lower yard. It is the biggest yard on the layout. I do have run-through tracks. Again, we're just locomotives sitting on the main. So that's track 3. This is track 5, 6, 7, and 8. This will be an engine facility. I am scratch building a brick engine facility, and it's all laser cut and ready to go. It will be scratch built. I'll probably do a video on that eventually. And as you go down, further down, you can see the main goes under the bridges there. That is still track 3. Now where the diamond is, that is track 4. So track 3 crosses a main. It's a little interesting, but the space I had, this is what I had to work with, so I made the best of it. So this is the only finished part of the layout. I was playing around with some scenery, so this will all look like this eventually. This is the power plant in the lower Bridgeport yard. This is a United Illuminating. And originally, this is where the layout stopped. And what happened was I bought a few more kits, and I decided to add Bridgeport Harbor. So I added Bridgeport Harbor. And I got a few boats. I got too many boats actually in the harbor. And what I also added was some wall switching. So if you come through here, that is a Seaview Avenue branch. Comes all the way over behind, and that is a 15-inch radius. I have no problem switching it. I run trains down here all the time. It works very well, both in DC and DCC. I started putting Seaview Avenue in, and this is my street running area, and the trains run really well through here. Now the only issue with this, not really an issue, but I do have an engine restriction in this area. So I only can run the 44 tonners down here, or S1s or S2s. That's it. I have an engine restriction. You can't get anything bigger down here. And the reason for that is if I were to come down here engine first, which is not a problem, and I had to switch out, let's say a 40-foot boxcar or a reefer like this, I did put a switch in here, 2 switches, so the engine has a place to get out. So I can bring a string of cars through here. I'm only going to bring 3 or 4 cars at a time, and then I can double back, run around here, switch, and then come back in and then switch it. So preferably it's best to shove down this way, but if I do come engine first, that's also a possibility. So I do have some industries here that I'm putting in. Again, this is a work in progress, but this is a pretty cool, one of my favorite areas to lay out right now to switch out. I think it's really cool to have a layout, tracks near the water, and then having the ships here. So this eventually will be all have water in it, and get also some areas here to switch. This is actually Bridgeport Harbor and Seaview Avenue. All right, so let's go. I'm going to pause the video, go under the duck under, and we'll start on the other side of the layout. This is where the layout basically dead ends right here. Oh, just one other thing. I will be putting catenary poles down here, but there's not going to be any catenary. The year that I'm modeling, or the era, the catenary was taken down. So I am going to put, I do have a special catenary poles that were made, and they're basically just poles. So it'll simulate that wire once was down here, just for modeling purposes. So let me pause the video, and then we'll go on the other side of the layout. Okay, so we're on the other side of the layout. This is track 4, and track 3 is still coming through, and it travels here like it was in the diagram, and it goes all the way over to 43 switches, which is right there. But before we go over there, that's going to be East Bridgeport. Let's go down this way. Now, this area here is still, it's about 90% wired. I just got to finish up some more wiring on it, drop some more feeders. This is Housatonic Avenue. I have never run a train down here yet, so this is going to be definitely a really cool street running switching area. Now, these buildings are not permanent. I just put these buildings here. This is a view block for now. I got them cheap, so I'm just going to use them on the layout for now, and then I haven't decided what buildings I'm actually going to use. But this is, it's a pretty cool area to switch. It will be anyway. This building here is going to be Jenkins Valves, and then you have Main Street in Bridgeport. So I'm probably going to bury these tracks in the street. Seaview or Housatonic Avenue did have street running, so it's definitely going to be a fun area to switch. That building there is going to be Bridgeport Brass. This is a temporary building, but I'm going to be putting Sprague Meter there. And I haven't decided what this area is going to be yet as far as industry. So this is going to be Housatonic Avenue. There's the switch arrangement. And these are all Pico insole frogs that I'm using throughout the layout. I do have hand-thrown switches throughout the layout. I don't have an official count on how many switches I have, but I do have well over 30 powered switches throughout the layout. And I haven't even counted these yet. So you can come engine first or shove down this area. I do have a Y switch there that I can turn the engine I put the engine on the other side of the consist. So, and there's going to be Main Street in Bridgeport. That will be a turntable, but that's actually, don't pay attention to that right now because this is actually New Haven side, so it kind of, that's New Haven over there. So, all right, so let's go down Housatonic Avenue. We'll cross over, and now this is actually West End Lumber. This building is just a standing building for now. So this area here is going to be West End Lumber. I did do some switching in here before. This is fully operational for switching, and it works very well. Now these coaling towers, if you go down on North Avenue in Bridgeport, and you actually see them from Route 25 before you get on 95, they're actually painted green. And I did some research on those, and years ago they used to get 30 coal cars a week. This was called Connecticut Coke, I believe, and it was definitely quite busy area. So it's pretty cool to check out if you ever go down there. The building there is going to be Henry Bresky's, which you can also see from 95, and you also see a lot of the New Haven books. That's Waterbury Pen. If you've seen the recent issue of RMC December, I was featured in that with this structure. So this is a scratch-built structure as well. Waterbury Pen Company was actually in Bridgeport. They never took any rail traffic in, so this is actually serviced by truck. But I thought it was a really cool building to slip in between the tracks, and the track one goes behind it as well. All right, so now moving right along. Brothers Milling is in East Bridgeport. This was another scratch build project I did. Doesn't exist in Bridgeport, but it was one of the contest models I won first place with, and it's on my layout. So I do have a car sitting here with blue flags. So now this here, you have this track here is East Bridgeport siding, and then you have the Remington siding. This will be Remington Firearms, probably the biggest complex on the layout. I still have to change some of the wording on these buildings, change the name. So I do have a switch here for Remington. This originally wasn't here, and I added it. And do have a building here, and then I have the power plant right here. So East Bridgeport siding can be used for drops. If a train's coming through, I already worked it into my one of my op sessions. A train will come through and make a drop here and continue on to the lower Bridgeport yard. I do have a special switcher just for Remington. So I did switch this area out recently, and it actually worked pretty well. There is a track in there, and a track over there. So you do have a front and a back end of Remington to switch. What I put in there is our ammo cars, so ammunition comes out of those out of that siding, and you actually have to double back over here, and there's a runaround track there. So it definitely adds realism for some switching. So that is Bridgeport. So we're going to pause the video, and we're going to head over to New Haven. We're actually going to go back to the other side and head to Lambertson Street shops. Okay, so this is going to be Lambertson Street shops. I did a kit bash on a Walters building. I had a very small area to work with, so this is definitely another work in progress. One of the New Haven books does feature, they did have a turntable down there, but they didn't have the roundhouse anymore. So I'm putting the larger 130-foot turntable in here. And the reason why is I got some steam, some big steam I can bring down there and run and turn. This is the only way I'm able to turn an engine on the layout. So there was no place to put a Y or anything like that. So eventually I have to cut in the turntable. So if you look at all the engines here, again, this is Lambertson Street shops. One of the busiest shops that they had after they closed Reedville. Lambertson Street was basically the main shop to service all the New Haven locomotives as well as the electrics. Lambertson Street shops, I have a picture of it, an aerial view. It did have a coaling tower, so I added one as well. Now this coaling tower, at this period of my layout, is out of service. So I do have a track here that I elevated. I call it the hill track. I'm actually going to put catenary through that covering there, that shed, and all the way over here so I can park the Virginians right on the hill track. So it's actually going to be a pretty cool area to model, as you can tell. All right, so now the layout in Bridgeport has a main line on the ground level, and then it has two elevated main lines. Now originally I only had two mains, but then at the last minute I decided to add a third main. So once you get to the New Haven side, I do have a 3-track main. And it goes all the way down there. Now the main line run is 22 feet long, so I can run 3 trains at once, plus the yards. And also I have separate throttles, and when I'm running DC only, I can run all 3 mains. I have separate throttles for the yards and East Bridgeport, and also Housatonic Avenue. Okay, now, believe it or not, this is going to be New Haven Harbor. It's going to be a very, very tiny New Haven Harbor. This right here is going to be a pier with a track going down the center. This is going to be Bell Dock, if you're familiar with Bell Dock. So I'm going to cut all this and then drop it down. I don't know how deep I'm going to make the harbor, but I will have a small little harbor here. On the dock itself, I'll have some areas I can switch out, but I will have cars in here. This is going to be the Campbell's Wharf kit. So it's going to be pretty neat. Continuing on, I do have a Craftsman kit that I found. That I didn't build this one. Someone else built it, but I thought it was a pretty cool kit, so I picked it up. All right, so one thing I want to show you, I do have a double slip switch here on the layout, and that is all powered from the dispatching. That switch right there is about $75. One of the most expensive switches on the layout. So anyway, so going through here, this switch here is a Cedar Hill switch. And yes, I have Cedar Hill Yard. My version is Cedar Hill Yard. So we'll come in, and here's Cedar Hill. Cedar Hill is tiny, but it's a yard. It's a 3-track yard. I think I can fit around 20-something cars in here, so it works out well. All right. Now, this area is not... Oh, one quick thing I want to show you here. I do have an engine facility. So the switch comes over here, and this is going to be the engine facility. This is going to be a Craftsman kit from Foscale, and it's a 1-engine house kit. So it's gonna be pretty neat once I get it done. Moving right along, I do have three more businesses down here. This is a diorama I found at a show. This is a fine scale kit. This is the ice house. So I'll be able to ice the cars here on 2 tracks. This is just a stand-in structure. This is actually a Foscale kit as well. But this is going to be a brewery, and I'm not sure the name of it yet, but there was a couple breweries in New Haven, so I'm going to have that as well. This is the only area of the layout that I have code 83 track, and that is to match what's on this diorama. So I go from code 100 to 83. Okay. And then I'm going to put in a switch here. So this will feed the ice house, and this will feed the scrapyard, which I'm putting in. And then there's Remington. So there's New Haven and Bridgeport. And there's my Mainline. Not sure what I'm going to do there yet. So I guess you can say the track work is about 90%. I still wiring stuff, but I can still run trains and do op sessions. All right, so that's going to be pretty much the tour, but I got one more thing to show you. Last year I said there was a special announcement on the layout, so why don't we go check that out? And I'm going to pause the video. Okay, so we're back over in Seaview Avenue, and last year I said I was going to make a major announcement for the layout. And that major announcement basically is I expanded again. And this is actually the final expansion of the layout because I have no more wall space. I took it all over. And where this ended, Seaview Avenue ended, a friend of mine came over and boxed it in for me. And basically I'm going to show you what he did. So obviously, you have the door right here to my layout room. So we put a bridge in. It swings down, so I still have to put track on it. Crosses in front of the door. Now the bridge sits inside a nice sturdy stand. And we got more bench work. So it's going to cross over, and I got some more area to switch out. More water. So this can be another little harbor. And what's really cool is I will have it interchange finally on the layout. So we'll have a car float, as you can see here. And this will all be water as well. So I still have to raise up the bench work. Still have to do some more work with that. But this will be another 15-inch radius in here. The track work, the track plan does work. And so this was the big announcement, and I'm pretty excited about it. But the only thing is, I have no more wall space. That's it. So this maxes out my layout, which is fine because I have a lot of work to do. But what's nice is I'm going to be able to add probably 3 more industries on this switching area. So as you can see, it goes right across, and there's the lift bridge. So it's pretty cool, actually. And I'm very pleased with it. So what's neat about this is the engine restriction that I had, I can lift it now. So now I can bring the GP9s down here. I can bring the RS1s, the RS11s, the H1644s. So that that actually solved a big problem I had. So that's pretty cool. So this crosses over, this area of the layout is going to be New York. So I'm going to pause the video and I'll get the track plan out and I'll show you what I mean. All right, everybody. So this is going to be the track plan that I used as a reference point. So the new section that I put in is going to be Harlem River. And these are track plans from the 1940s. I mean, this one here is from November 14th, 1940. And so the area, as you can tell from the track plan, they did have float bridges there. And so I decided to add a float bridge. So what's nice about it is it adds an interchange to the layout. And I actually picked this one up at a hobby shop that had it in its case for a long time, and the owner didn't want it anymore. Gave me a great deal on it, so it came home with me. Couldn't pass up the deal. So the track that's on the float in the apron is code 83. The switch here will be code 83, and then it'll transition back to 100. Here's the track plan that I have right here. This comes off the swing gate, or swing bridge rather, and feeds into the car float. I have some storage tracks here, as well as a spot for an industry, and probably 2 more industries here. All right. So again, here's the area. This is covered with 1/2-inch Homosote. I use Homosote throughout the entire layout. I like working with it. I don't use cork on the layout because the New Haven really didn't have raised main lines too much. So, and I looked at the books and a lot of it was pretty much flat. So that's why I went with the Homosote. I did use cork on the bridge here. But right now the main focus going forward is going to be scenicking, obviously the lower yard, Seaview Avenue, the harbor, and also the new section. So this will be wired with DC and DCC. And I'm looking forward to getting this done. So this pretty much ends the layout tour. I do appreciate you watching it. Give me a thumbs up if you like it. Ask me any questions in the comments and I'll respond. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next video.